Hello there! You want to create a new faction, Empire of War Forces of Corruption? Here's how you do it. This tutorial will require the source XML files and a local mod to function properly. This tutorial will not go into how to create a local mod or access the SML Lua files of the game. This works with base Forces of Corruption, and the learned things in here can also be applied to other mods as well. A couple of notes before we begin. Only the first three primary factions, the Rebellion, the Empire, and the Kazan Consortium, can support a custom GUI at the bottom. Every newly added faction will use the Criminal Underworld's GUI command bar. You can only smuggle credits from the three primary factions. Unfortunately, the newly added ones do not support this. Same goes for text slicing of the Rebels and a couple of other things that are just hard-coded within the game. The display icons are also faction locked behind the three primary factions. Again, unfortunately, just a limitation of the game. For the purposes of this tutorial, we shall create the CIS remnants of Jaizer Delso from Battlefront 2 on Mustafar. And without further ado, let's get right into it. As you can see, I've already prepared a little local mod, which I dubbed the FOC CISR faction tutorial. Has a data folder, has the bare necessities, all of which we will discover over the course of these tutorials. But for now, we will go into XML, where I have prepared all the required files for us to get this faction up and running. To get us going, we open up factions and expansion.factions. In factions.xml, we find ourselves the Empire entry, copy the entire string top to bottom. We'll end up with these guys over here. We copy this, head over into expansion factions, find ourselves a neat little spot I've chosen between Underworld and the Huts, and paste them in here. Now we scroll all the way back to the top, and we rename these to be CISR. Then we obviously want to give this one also a different name, so we know, okay, this is not the Empire, this is the CIS. We save this. That is the first and most important step to get you going on your faction journey. What you want to do next is grab the name of your faction and add it into each faction's enemies list. This is very important because otherwise you cannot engage or destroy any of the other faction's units, meaning you could potentially either soft lock yourself or just have a very weird block of force in your GCs at any given time. So what we want to do here is do a comma, space, and add the name. Obviously, we don't want to make the CIS enemies of themselves. In here, we'll add the Empire as we've copied the Empire and they are not enemies of themselves, obviously. Then we go to the Huts, same process here, add in the CIS, and we do the same thing in the base factions.xml. We do pirates, we do hostiles so that natives also can engage you. Same with the Sarlacc, and obviously also with the Rebellion and the Empire. Once you've achieved that, your faction can now successfully attack and defend against the other factions, and they also perceive you like a proper threat. Now then, our next step, which very few people know about, is groundbases.xml. When I open that one up, you'll be greeted with the sight of these entries. And these are basically the precursors to what we now have with the required special structures and the individual structures as a whole. Prior to this, we upgraded our ground base on, well, the ground, and that's no longer a thing. The game still runs on that system, even if it's just for auto-resolve calculations. So what you want to do here, we scroll down to the bottom, we find ourselves the hut ground base, take that entire string, we copy that one, we rename this to be CIS remnants ground bases, and now what we can do is insert the CISR in every single one where it says huts. Just go do this. And this will ensure that auto-resolve works from the player end. And you avoid a very nasty crash that the AI would have if they tried to attack the AI. And there you go. We use variant of existing type based on the rebel ground base to inherit all of the other values. And this will set you up so that you can also attack this faction and engage them properly in auto-resolve without soft blocking yourself or outright crashing. This will do for now. As for our next step, we head into the different special structures. And special structures underworld is of good interest to us because it has a bit more of CIS-esque structures. And in here, all we really have to do is once again find ourselves the affiliation tag and add the CIS remnants to it. So that is then the uGround Palace. We then want to find the uGround Droid Works. And in this file, mods might change this, you will also find the bunkers. So what we want to do here is grab ourselves, for one, we add them to the capturables. And for another, probably, these are the buildable ones, so we don't even need these actually. Yeah, add them to the capturable bunker, and that way you ensure that your faction can also then capture the bunkers. Up next comes another very important step, that being adding your faction to a Galactic conquest. What we want to do here is we go into campaigns Underworld GC. I like to do the Equal Footing campaign as it's the largest of them all with 56 planets. We scroll up here, we find ourselves the beginning, copy this. We can set this up wherever, really, it doesn't really matter. I just like doing it in order. We then need to rename this so that the game knows, okay, this is a different campaign entry. We do the same ordeal here, and starting active player will ensure that the CISR is actually playable in your GC in this new entry. We then add ourselves a little home location, CISR with Mustafar. We swap out the story plots so that we do not get greeted with the underworld. And we add one more entry where we swap out Rebel for Underworld with AI player Underworld. This will ensure that the Underworld also has an AI again. We can then give ourselves the hints. So CSR. And last but not least, we find ourselves Mustafar, which in this GC is usually under the control of the Rebel Alliance. And we can just do this quickly and that. Then we swap this out for the uGround Palace, as well as the uGround Droid Works, since we did add the affiliation towards that. And there we go. With this, we have now ensured that, at least for now, the CIS can access Mustafar as a planet and have the two structures on the ground. Units and stations are going to come in a separate video. That would be too much for now. Once we have done all of that, we need to go back into our folder and open up markers.xml. And in here, we want to find the reinforcement point marker. And this is all of your landing zones and all of that. And the same process again in here. We want to go CISR for the affiliation. That's it. It is really as simple as that. But this is very important, as otherwise you will land on the ground with any units and you'll just find yourself without a landing zone and unable to capture any others. we save this. We can then start to close down a couple of these ones. And for the last part of this tutorial, I like to go over the build paths, which are set in ground buildable skirmish. These are the positions where you, the player, can build your individual turrets as defined in here. And once again, we find ourselves the affiliation and we paste the CISR right in there. And this will ensure that you can capture build path, and once you've made your entry and the affiliation edits to these variants, you will also be granted the ability to actually construct the turrets. So for showcasing this, I will add the CISR to the pirates, and ground buildables.pirate is then already in here. You can do this with any of the other factions. It's just important that the affiliation is set. So what we have here is the dedicated pirate build path. That's not of our importance right now. We find the abstract type. In a not too long ago of a patch of Petroglyph, they've reshuffled this a bit, so you'll find that if you go and add this in here, now you have access to all these specific types, since they all are a variant of this primary abstract type of the turret. And with this, you are very much ready to go. Do note, you will not have any space units, you will not have a star base, and you will not have any ground units. All of these are going to be covered in subsequent videos. But that's it. I will now just load this up. And if we did everything right, we should be greeted with a text faction CIS remnants that will spawn on Mustafar with a palace and a ground droid works. Alright, so far looking pretty good. And as we can see, we've already been greeted with a new faction. We can select it, and we select equal footing. If I try to select anything else, you can see that the buttons are grayed out. That basically is because we haven't added entries for the CIS, which you can do. You can edit this to your heart's content. I'm just giving you the hinters and pointers necessary to make them work. So yeah, let's hit start game. And hopefully that should do it. Yep, there we go. We are on Mustafar. Congratulations! You have now successfully added a new faction into Empire at War. While I'm at it, a couple of last few notes. The starbase indicator for any new faction is always going to be the pirate asteroid base no matter what for base game mods. This is unfortunately another drawback of the game. It works this way. There's not much you can do about that, unfortunately. And since I'm seeing it right here, there's another quick aspect that I will need to cover. And that is, you obviously, if you add a new faction, also need to give them some money. So, there's starting tech, and max tech. And we're just gonna copy this. And you can slap that one in wherever, really. Just need to make sure that it's CISR, CISR, CISR. Let's just give ourselves maybe some 10,000 credits. Tech level. Yeah, for the sake of it, just 5 out of 5. Then we'll quickly relaunch. And if you didn't know, you can press spacebar or escape to skip the introductory movies. To just speed up the process a little bit further. Yep, and there we go.
Constructing.
Build the droid armies, conquer the galaxy, and may the Force be with you. Thank you for watching, and have a lovely day.